Hi, everybody, and good day. I'm Steve Farrell. I'm a co-founder and the executive director of Humanities Team. I'm coming to you live from our studio here in Boulder, Colorado. It's beautiful weather here in Boulder today. As you can see, I've got two esteemed friends here with me. I'm going to give them a formal introduction in just a moment, but Deborah Moldow and Emanuel Kuntzelman, and thank you all so much for joining me here today.
Thank you. Pleasure.
All right. And we are all coming to you live. So Deborah, where are you coming in from?
I'm in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, where it's always a beautiful day.
And it is beautiful down there. And Emanuel, where are you coming in from today?
Well, just to keep the Spanish-speaking theme in order, I'm in Madrid, Spain today.
Okay, Madrid, Spain. So, wow. So we're coming to you from all over the world. This is why I start with good day, because, you know, it isn't necessarily morning here as we're sharing with you all. So, and I know people are coming in from all over the world. This is a live broadcast. So let me shout out to the evolutionary leaders, because we're on their site. The Sign Network, and that's John Raymer, and of course the Sign.network. You can learn about them. They do incredible work. They're creating positive change all over the world. So big shout out to John and all of these sites that they're broadcasting to Humanities Team, the Humanities Stream people. We can actually see the Humanities Streamers right here on camera. A couple of you are on camera. We can see you, so I'll just wave to you. So Humanities team members out on our the social network, mostly Facebook. So yeah, just big welcome to all of you. Thanks for being here. We've got a real exciting program with you. As always, because it's live, we can bring in your questions. So especially in the first half hour, as you're listening to us talk, if you've got questions for Deborah or Emanuel, bring them in. Those questions are brought back to the studio, and I can bring them to them in real time. It's one of the really fun things about doing a live program. So our theme here for today's program is become a leader in the world to come. Become a leader in the world to come. And so that might give you a little insight into where we're going to go here. Of course, Humanities Team is a 501c3 nonprofit. Our whole focus is changing humanity's future, creating this whole new world of possibility for not just our generation, but future generations, and creating a sustainable and flourishing planet. And so, of course, as we talk about leadership, this emerging leadership model, we're going to be talking about leadership that is developing this whole new way of living on the earth. So let me give now a proper introduction to my guests that are here with me today. I'll start with the Reverend Deborah Moldow. She's an ordained interfaith minister committed to assisting in the transformation of human consciousness to a culture of peace. Deborah is the founder of the Garden of Light, an online platform that provides a virtual home for a new community rooted in the emerging global spirituality. She is director of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, a project of the Source of Synergy Foundation that brings together visionaries committed to the acceleration of conscious evolution. She is a co-editor of the award-winning 2020 book by 43 evolutionary leaders, Our Moment of Choice, Evolutionary Visions and Hope for the Future. She is also vision keeper at Unity Earth. And again, Deborah, just a big welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's wonderful to be here with you and Emanuel.
Okay, now let me introduce Emanuel. Emanuel Kuntzelman is an entrepreneur, a writer, philosopher, philanthropist, and activist for social transformation. Emanuel founded Greenheart International in 1985 and currently serves as chief advisor to the organization. He is also the co-founder of Fundación por del Futuro, which is Future, in Madrid, Spain, and has been its president since 1995. He is the founding co-creator of the Global Purpose Movement and Purpose Earth, and a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. His most current project is developing the theory of the Holo movement as a movement to unite humanity through our collective purpose. He is a board member and or advisor to Greenheart International, Humanities Team, our organization, Unity Earth, Integral Transformative Practice International, and the Laszlo Institute for New Paradigm Research. He is co-editor of the anthology Purpose Rising and the just released book, The Holo Movement, Embracing Our Collective Purpose to Unite Humanity. Again, that was just released, and we'll certainly be talking about it here during the hour. And welcome again, Emanuel. So great to have you with us.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here and looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you. All
righty. Yeah, let's just jump right in here to this discussion. We'll kind of start at the top, so to speak, where we talk about this whole, becoming a leader in the world to come. So that's an interesting theme, isn't it? Where we're talking about a world to come and becoming a leader in that. And one of the things we were just chatting about very briefly in the green room as we were coming out is this, in some ways, this is maybe like a Galileo moment. And, Galileo, of course, was this esteemed scientist and astronomer who brought out, at the time that he lived, there was what was called a geocentric model for astronomy, right? Where they thought the sun revolved around the earth, that the earth was the center of the galaxy. So, and this was one of many things that he challenged. He said, no, they called it a heliocentric model where, no, we're actually revolving around the sun. So the galaxy is not what we think it is. There were many more, actually, contributions he made to astronomy, also to science. He's considered by many to be the father of modern astronomy and science. But there were all of these limiting beliefs when he was living there, and actually he was, I think, locked up. His life was very challenging because of the truth that he was bringing forward. That hey, life as we know it isn't what we think it is. There's really a different model for how we might live our life, a different model for the universe, a different model for the earth, and in many ways, as we start into this whole discussion of holo movement, and even my book, A New Universal Dream, we're kind of in the same place here in some ways, aren't we, Deborah? That we've got these limiting beliefs, prevailing beliefs that really are not right dead on center here.
Yeah, that's certainly true, Steve. And your Galileo analogy reminds me that when I was a young person, I thought that the world revolved around me. And I like to think that I've graduated from that very limiting worldview to this concept of oneness that is such a foundational belief in the emerging paradigm, that we are part of one reality, one living universe on a living planet, and that even human consciousness is one, and that we are simply experiencing ourselves as individual reflections of that consciousness, sparks of the light, if you will, or drops in the ocean, as Rumi would have said, in which the ocean is contained in that drop. So we're starting to look at how we live on this planet from a very different perspective, that it's not about me and my success in life. It's about all of life, and how do we serve that going forward from a limited worldview that has done enormous harm to the planet and to one another, and feeling the force of love and purpose that drives us to be our best selves and contribute to the flourishing of all.
Yeah, boy, beautifully said. And that's right. This is the big one that we're up against. And it's interesting because in the Holo Movement book, which we're going to be talking about also in my book, A New Universal Dream, we're going back and discussing history. Of course, David Bohm at the center of the Holo Movement. but we can go all the way back to Plato. My God, this is 450 BCE, right? And Hippocrates, who was there about 30 years, from that same time frame, and they were both saying, hello, there's a single consciousness. We're all faces of this thing. The universe is a single consciousness. And of course, mystical traditions have been just dead on here for eons too. And now we got science coming in, Nobel Prize for Physics with entanglement of, things aren't even, there's no physical connection, but by God, they're affecting each other, And Sim Harriman's, his Resonance Science Foundation, where it's just there, all the equations are just bam, right there, everything, physical and non-physical, smallest to largest, it's all one. So, this is what's rapidly coming in now, and it just challenges the whole way that we look out at the world, our own notions of ourself, our notions of what in the world is our invitation in life, right, Deborah?
Yes, and this is a very exciting moment for that reason. And that's one of the things I love about your book, New Universal Dream, Steve, is that when you describe the great awakening resonance that you felt when you first read Neale Donald Walsch's Conversations with God first book, you then go back and quote all of these great philosophers and spiritual leaders of the past who have expressed this notion of oneness and how this is not a new idea. In fact, it's a very ancient idea. And if anything, we have separated from that oneness as we've lived deeply into our modern civilization with the focus on the individual and all of the benefits of science we definitely are appreciating the gifts of that time in human history when we've learned to feed a growing population. We've learned to prevent many diseases. We have learned to lift the standard of living around the world. And the percentage of people living in dire poverty right now is much lower than it's ever been. However, in the process, and this always reminds me of the prodigal son analogy from the Bible, is that we've gone so far out into this notion of progress and individual success that we have caused great harm. And it's time for us to come back. And of course, in the Bible, it's coming back to the Father who welcomes us. And in our lifetime, it's embracing this notion of oneness, however you see it in your spiritual context. And I just want to say that the description under my name said that I was founder of the Garden of Life, but actually it's the Garden of Light. And the purpose of the Garden of Light at gardenoflight.org is to explore this emerging global spirituality. And this is not a religion. This leaves room for all of the beautiful religions and spiritual traditions on our planet. There's people from many, many different faiths and even of no faith who are starting to embrace certain concepts that were never popular before, such as that we are part of a greater reality that's beyond what we can experience with our five senses. I mean, even germ theory tells us that, let alone the idea of a loving God and ascended masters, angels, whatever, life on other planets. We're opening our inner vision to what's possible around us. Also, the belief that we can heal ourselves and one another instead of giving our power to a medical system, for instance, or one shaman. These powers are within us. We are the divine expressing as individual sparks. So there's something happening here that I don't think people are paying enough attention to, because I think it's a very beautiful thing. Most people on the planet believe that war is obsolete, that it is just not even an effective way to solve a problem. And before, if you talk about 100, 200 years ago, war was a glorious thing that men marched off to with great pride. And now it's a last resort. Oh my God, do we have to do violence? No, we all yearn to live in a culture of peace.
Oh boy, so beautifully said. All of these things that you were just describing, Deborah, and this new spirituality that you share.
Thank you for changing the description under my name.
Yeah. Sorry, this is the thing about doing a live program. I'll introduce Jim at the end of the program. It takes a lot of courage to do live programs because there are lots of things still moving around. It's not like ABC or NBC where it's all nailed down, closed circuit. So Jim, thank you for fixing that. So this new spirituality that you mentioned, I think people honestly can even feel this, in our conversation right now, Deborah, because I love that you brought in this whole prodigal son thing, because in a way, didn't we all? I mean, we were schooled to be prodigals, right? So you're lucky sperm and an egg, and enjoy it because you're going to go to bones and dust 6 feet under. That's just what happens, and so. Off we go on this crazy journey of separation, and just gathering hordes of nuts, right? And then we go, as we awaken to this wisdom that, again, has been around forever, over 2,500 years. It goes back to antiquity. So that, no, there's a great web of life, And, of course, in telling my own story about this, which I relate in the book, it's, for me, what happened when I started to align with this wisdom is the cognitive dissonance went away, See, because there was this cognitive dissonance that was, I was doing these things and the American dream thing and climbing that ladder, but there was this noise, this voice of, well, yeah, but how's this going to serve you and the planet, And it just all went away, as I aligned with, I call it aligning with the divine, but you could call it aligning with the universe, aligning with the light, aligning with love, and which is this wisdom that there's this great web of life. We're going to preserve life, right? That life is going to be the highest priority. And then this whole new spirituality thing, which again, I think people can feel, even in this conversation, it's not a religious dogma at all. It's this divinity, that is within, that's actually within all of life. And where even the scientists, I'm thrilled to see scientists light up and become animated as they're talking, they're saying, you are inseparable from the universe, walk with good posture, walk straight and tall, because this is, the universe couldn't be without you. It's like it's some minister, and it's a scientist talking about his or her equations. Pretty fun.
Well, and there's so much to unpack in what you're saying, Steve. This is such a rich topic because, first of all, it's about the individual feeling their own calling. And the root of that, seriously, is unhappiness. We live in a very unhappy world. Especially, I felt that in the United States. There is a level of tension and insecurity and not enoughness feeling. I don't even know how to describe that. And when you describe this very well in your book, you talk about that cognitive dissonance that was healed by listening to the voice within. And yes, the scientists are very important here, but so are the businessmen. And that's what is really crystal clear in your book, Steve, is when you're feeling that your business is not aligning with your purpose, then something's off. And you fixed it in a very unique and exciting way by actually reaping your profits and going off and putting them into healing the world and founding Humanity's Team with Neil Donald Walsh. But you can also do that within business, and you've been very active in the movement toward conscious business, which I think is one of the most important things that can heal our troubled world. And that what it takes is people like you, Steve Farrell, and Emanuel Kuntzelman, who are successful in business and yet are feeling this new kind of leadership emerge through you that is taking you in a direction that, first of all, makes your business more conscious. And we have learned over the last several decades that a conscious business is often a more successful business. It doesn't take anything away from profit or business success, but instead it empowers employees, it makes for happy customers, and it makes a place to go for conscious consumers who really are looking. That's part of this new spirituality and taking care of ourselves in a new way as part of life is wanting organic food and, nonviolent food, shall I say. So business can make a huge difference in how it operates and also in providing opportunities for consumers who are becoming more conscious to find those conscious businesses and be part of a new kind of economy, which I think is essential to this new world. So one more thing that I want to say about that is I want to go back to a word that you used that's so important, and that is purpose. And Emanuel, who we'll hear from in a few moments, he has devoted a lot of his life to the global purpose movement. And purpose, collective purpose, is the topic of the chapter that I contributed to Emanuel's new book on the Holo movement. This is what's so exciting about becoming a leader for tomorrow. You don't have to have a swarm of followers to be a leader of the new emerging spirituality, the new emerging consciousness, the type of collective purpose that can truly make a difference in our world. All you have to do is be a person who pays attention to their inner guidance. And once you do that, the opportunities will always open up for you to serve. I spent a couple of years every morning asking to be an instrument of God's peace. And let me tell you, if you do that, you're going to get busy.
Yes, you will. And thank you and we've got on screen here Emanuel Kuntzelman, who I introduced a little earlier, and hooray. So let's go to this whole Holo movement, the book, the movement, its launch, what's happening now. There's a lot here to unpack. Emanuel, where do we get started as we talk about this Holo movement that is embracing the earth?
Well, I think the Holo movement fits in very well with this conversation of moving away from individual concept of our lives and purpose into a collective purpose. And, really, I think, as you've also said here so far in ancient history and in the development of humankind from early on, we do have a collective purpose within ourselves, but we've lost sight of it. And this is mainly due to cultural influences, socialization of the Western world, particularly since the Industrial Revolution, that, as Deborah said, we think the world revolves around us. And we've been, culturized to believe that. The whole concept of rugged individualism, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. We're intoxicated with this individual drive, and that's our measure of success, worth, and purpose, only to find that doesn't really lead us to happiness and satisfaction. As you yourself have seen and explained in your own book, there comes a point where it's not about accumulating material possessions. It's about how can we serve the good of the whole and the needs of humanity. And as we begin to get into that, we see that there's a positive feedback loop that really makes us feel better about ourselves. It allows us to do our service more efficiently, and it just builds a momentum of understanding. So that is the essence of the Holo movement. It's this great turn in our spiritual and scientific understanding of the meaning of life. Why are we here? We're not here for the aggrandizement of our individual accomplishments. We're here to serve the whole and make the world a safer, more peaceful, loving place for all of humanity. So this is the biggest shift in the history of our civilization. It's coming upon us now, and we've decided that this term, originally coined by physicist David Bohm, is an adequate description of this movement towards wholeness and oneness.
Yes, it is. Yes, and it's so important. We're bringing in scientists, and David Bohm, of course, as you mentioned, and in the launch, which we'll talk about, was a key feature of the launch because he surfaced this term Holo movement and was a scientist and philosopher. And the thing that I think that's important here as we talk about what we're talking about is we're not creating something new. That we actually, this great web of life has always been. We just haven't been aware of it. Is why we started with this whole Galileo moment thing. Is we've been living into some illusion. Of the Einstein called it the delusion of separation. Right. That it's a prison for us. Everybody probably remembers this quote. And he's saying we've got to break out of this prison. Where we see the whole of humanity and not just our little family, our nuclear family. So we really need to live into the reality that's here now. And this is what this Holo movement does so beautifully with, as it's calling together organizations, Humanities Team and Purpose Earth and Unity Earth and Upshift and all of these others all over the world. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the book and how that came into being? And I know you can order that on Amazon or probably in bookstores now, right, Emanuel?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So encourage everyone to order a copy of the book. The book has been many years in the thinking process. I was inspired decades ago to find my purpose and to best serve humanity in the way that I felt my own abilities and talents could contribute to this. And I realized early on as a sociology student that it was finding a way to share resources, to combine all of the different organizations, movements around the world, to give them a collective purpose, cooperate together, and work together. And I felt it needed a name. Part of the issue here since going back to the 60s or 70s, when the New Age came into being, is to how to identify ourselves. And there's been some difficulty in doing so. Some of the names quite appropriate, I feel, the New Age, the Human Potential Movement, many others, but they never really seem to have stuck with the general public, and some of it's even gotten a little negative connotations to it, unfortunately. So I was on the search for a concept, an idea to express this coming together of movements. And I ran across the term Holo movement in reading David Bohm. This was back in 1984. I was reading Wholeness in the Implicate Order, and he described the Holo movement as how there is a connection between the implicate order, which is divine source, as you described it, and the explicate order, which is the manifestation of physical reality. Seemingly two very disparate, different, separate things, but yet they're not. And Bohm was one of the primary scientists to understand oneness and describe it. And it's just two different manifestations of the same thing. So there's a flow from the implicate order to the explicate. The implicate order codes the information to create a universe. The universe creates us. We think about it, and we go back to the divine source to get more inspiration and carry this evolutionary process forward. So that's the essential idea that David Bohm presented, the idea of the Holo movement itself. And I realized that to express this, a book would be helpful for everyone to read, and that it should be created in the spirit of the Holo movement. It should be an anthology, a contribution of many sources and multiple authors in each chapter. So it was conceived and carried out with that kind of spirit of collaboration and shared wisdom in mind. And I'm really very grateful to all the contributors, the publishers, everyone who has made this book possible. When you're in right purpose and you have the winds of the universe at your back, it's amazing how things can flow forward so smoothly and easily and make things happen that you wouldn't have otherwise thought is possible. So that's a kind of new sort of leadership too, is to just sort of submit ourselves to the divine and the implicate order and be of service to that, not to ourselves. And it's surprising how things will move forward and show us a place. And in the end of the day, we'll probably get more individual personal satisfaction out of that had we pursued our own selfish interests to begin with.
Absolutely. Boy, isn't that true? So now the publisher for the Holo Movement book and my book, A New Universal Dream, is Sacred Stories Publishing, and that's Ariel Patricia, she's the CEO of Sacred Stories Publishing. So also let me mention Kurt Johnson, because it's actually a collaboration. Sacred Stories Publishing and Light on Light Press work very closely together. Kurt Johnson does a whole lot of work with Bob, and Bob's last name, Atkinson. Yeah,
Bob
thank
Atkinson.
you. So Bob Atkinson, they're terrific, and boy, they really work with the authors to get these books out in the public and then to get on podcasts and things. So big shout out to them. So what as you were talking about this and talking with Deborah earlier, the thing that comes to mind for me in metaphor is, for me as a young person, I kind of had my ladder, I'll call it, leaning against a certain wall, a certain wall of understanding of, I'm born as the son of Linda and Joe, two parents, and I've got this life to live. And the American dream is really neat. It's first rungs on the ladder of equal opportunity and equal education for people. My goodness, we want that for everybody in the world. But these people want to keep climbing. I did too. And then there's this power and fame and fortune and all this stuff where you keep climbing. And those things I found were really quite a mirage. It was like there was an oasis always on the horizon. At 100 million in revenue, we want 200 million. At 200 million, we want 400 million. There's just we don't quench a thirst there. There's not a lot of joy, candidly, that comes back to just financial gain. And I know, Emanuel, as we've been discussing, you come out of the business world too. We've lived and worked with business people. Boy, the real joy, the real deliciousness in life is what we're talking about here now, right? Where we're contributing to the greater good. It's about positive change, supporting the earth, stewarding the earth, humanity. We're going to go back to the non-physical realm at the end of this life. We all will, whatever our beliefs are. And mediums and near-death experience folks tell us, it's all about how loving were we. When we head back to that non-physical realm, there's no that bank account, the Maserati, that none of that counts for anything as we're heading back.
You can't take it with you. No.
Right. So that's why this is so important. Whatever our beliefs are, there's a certain ultimate reality that we're understanding from scientists now too, is that this really is how the universe works. And boy, so what that caused me to do is take my ladder and, was leaning against one wall, and I picked it up and and took it and leaned it against a different wall, which is to say, I've really got to live my life a little different here, because with these new understandings, it doesn't, the way I was, the way I was living before doesn't make a lot of sense. So, but let me come back to Holo Movement, your book. It's extraordinary, all of the people you gathered in the book, this Holo Movement book, which only became available here, I think, in April. And then there was this big launch where you convened this group, Deborah, who's with us on this program, and Ben was with us, flying in from Australia, people really from all over the world. Really, it was an extraordinary launch here in Sedona, this Holo Movement launch. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Emanuel?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Steve. And just a word too on, you mentioned Light on Light and Sacred Stories. Just can't say enough about their support, their understanding for these things. Kurt Johnson, as you mentioned his name, he's been one of the key. He's one of these real hubs of the Holo Movement, bringing so many people together, and with his wisdom and guidance too. So a big shout out to Kurt Johnson and the whole team, Ariel and Bob and everyone else, because this really was an expression of the Holo Movement, the way everybody worked together. And yeah, we planned it starting about this time last year, that we would hold a gathering in Sedona. For me, a very sacred space that has a lot of energy, and to launch something. But it wasn't a launch of the Holo Movement. The Holo Movement has always existed, always will be. It is the flow, the cosmic flow of the universe. But it has grown a bit dormant, particularly in this age of individuality and separation consciousness. And so we've kind of lost sight of that. And we felt that the world revolves around ourselves, when in fact it does not. So we didn't launch the Holo Movement, but we ignited it, we reignited it. We tried to bring it back to life and light that flame of spirituality and science and where they merge. And we organized this event in Sedona. As you mentioned, Deborah, and Source of Synergy Foundation were co-sponsors of this, did a wonderful job of bringing it together. We had such high demand for participation in the event, we were limited to only 80 people due to the size of the sacred space we chose. Had a waiting list from very early on, and unfortunately couldn't accommodate everyone who wanted to attend, which is a good sign of all that enthusiasm. And brought people together at the end of March there, checked out some good signs for numerology, astrology, and all the rest of when this might take place, so that we could be in the flow of the cosmos. And I think we were. I think people really enjoyed themselves. You were there, Steve, and enjoyed seeing you and experiencing plenty of this together. But the idea was to reignite this flame of collective purpose. The subtitle of the Holo Movement book is Embracing Our Collective Purpose to Unite Humanity. And in these times of separation and division and conflict, it's what we really need. This is the great turning point. And we felt this gathering in Sedona could accomplish that purpose. And I think it was mission accomplished. We were very pleased with everyone who attended. We had an A-team, the people outside of Sedona who weren't able to be with us but followed it, and all of the ripple effects of the wave we created there are now flowing forward. So very pleased to see the results and the participation and support of so many people.
Yeah,
I'd like to
wonderful.
say just a couple of things to add to what Emanuel said about the event of igniting the Holo Movement. There were two components that I think made it particularly successful. The first was that it was a highly participatory gathering. So this was not a conference where people got up to share their wisdom with the audience. No, this was a working meeting where everyone got to engage and offer their visions and their views and build the energy around the different tracks of the of the gathering. And the other component that I thought was really essential was the working parts of the meetings were interspersed with meditations, prayers, and the arts. The arts were so important. We had music. We had a lot of very lively dancing, and also beautiful graphic illustration by Kara Stonehouse. So it was, I think this is a hallmark of the new paradigm and the Holo movement that's bringing us there, is that it is rich with the creativity of the human spirit. And that is the potential that we want to harness for the greater good, for the planet.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it was all of those things and more. It was what a treat. That was really well planned, well executed. I was really grateful to be there. So congratulations to you all. As you mentioned, Kurt Johnson, Ben Bowler. There were so many. I shouldn't name names because I'm going to leave out. There were so many prominent leaders that were there. So we have a lot of questions here. But before we go to those questions, just one of the things that often surfaces when we're talking about this is from a live audience is, so this whole new spirituality, this oneness, this unitive narrative, what is it, how do we live into it? I often hear these kinds of questions of what are some first steps, and which is an interesting one because we've lived into it for decades, and there's so many things we could talk about, but some of the things I'd like to bring in, which I know you all talk about, is just the breathing, the breath, and just the inhale and the exhale, and really coming into our being state, where it's not just at some logic center of the head, mind, but more we're coming down into more the wisdom center of our soul, this being state of, it feels like flow for me, with nature and life, and where we're breathing. We're not in tasks now. We're more in connection, in this connection place. And these are just some of the initial first steps. The other thing I'll bring in that you brought in earlier, Deborah, which is so important, you were saying, you for years were saying, bring me guidance, guide me on this path, support me on this path, right? And then you said, oh boy, and then now you're really you're moving on this path. And the universe, it does work that way, where we just say, we're listening to that still small voice instead of the whirling noise, and, guide me, show me the way, support me. I want to be in service. And boy, I mean, there's just, you both said there's a wind at your back. I mean, there's just a real strong wind at your back, isn't there? That's just really supporting us on this journey.
You have to be so careful what you pay attention to. We are inundated with media these days, and there is a lot of media that is trying to get our attention through violence and how do I say it? Unhealthy media. So that's where conscious media is so important, and what you are building with Humanity's Stream is a perfect example of a place where you can go to refresh yourself by experiencing some of the greatest new paradigm teachers of our time. And then there are the books. There's the Holo Movement. There's the New Universal Dream. There's Our Moment of Choice, which was also edited with Kurt Johnson and Bob Atkinson. And if you nourish yourself with the experiences of others who have awakened to this path, this is going to seed your path. In your book, you mentioned some of the books that influenced you, Steve, and that included The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zucava, really seminal work. And he's another member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, as you are, as Emanuel is, as all the people that we've mentioned today are. And the Evolutionary Leaders Circle is is a group, a community of some people who have been very successful in different domains in this holo movement, in this moving forward of the human consciousness from this narrow state of being about ourselves to being of service to humanity. So that's one way that people can find their way. We all, I don't think there's any of us who aren't very conscious of standing on the shoulders of the leaders who have gone before us. And all of you who are doing that right now, who are reading these books, who are watching this program, believe me, you wouldn't have found this program if you weren't a leader of this evolution. You are doing it, and we applaud and embrace you for that, because it's all of us this way who are going to change the world. In the very beginning of the evolutionary leaders, we had a small group. It was only 35 people, and most of them were quite well-known authors and teachers like Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden and Jean Houston and Barbara Marx Hubbard and Deepak Chopra. And I would sit in those meetings and think, I'm not an evolutionary leader, nobody who's following me. And then I had this vision of the waves coming up on the sand, and that the wave that was coming was this evolution of human consciousness, and that every one of us that's on the edge of that wave is an evolutionary leader. So you too are a leader if you decide that that's who you are. And if you align with that, go to holomovement.net and sign up and find out what's going on.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're bringing this in, because this is why we're here, of course. This wasn't a talking head show. We're blah, 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 blah. It's an invitation. This is a call to action. But there are these new, it is a Galileo moment. There are these new understandings about God and about life, that are here now, where there's a divinity actually that's within each person and the earth itself and all of life. And it's just a whole different way of first understanding life and then living into life. And boy, when we talk about this holo movement and where it's going and our Changing Humanity's Future initiative, which is the very same thing, it's us, with you, the viewer, that you were called here to be here. You were called to be a leader. You were called to stretch even further into your own unitive narrative or oneness or unity consciousness, that this is ultimate reality. So we're not creating something new. We're just living into ultimate reality where we come into these new understandings. And as we are emphasizing, oh my gosh, it feels so good, where we get out of this me thing and into this we thing, that includes the earth and actually all of the cosmos. And we're boy, just unabashedly just inviting you in. Let's do this. Go to is holomovement.net. Is this? Did I say
That's
that right?
correct. Yeah.
Holomovement.net.
Holomovement.net.
So yes, holomovement.net. We've got our changinghumanity'sfuture.org. We're actually these are all really one big, huge movement, because Emanuel and Deborah are on our board of advisors. I'm a part of the holo movement. Doesn't matter. This is actually not about any particular names or anything. This is about just taking action, living into new understandings, creating a new way of living on the earth that just feels so good, and that creates this future for our kids. So this whole notion that's surfacing now of, oh my gosh, do the future generations have a home here on earth, or are they exposed? We can heal that question. That issue can go away as we start living into who we really are, and that's the whole purpose here. Let me bring in these are mostly comments, not questions, but let me bring them in. So Connie Baxter Marlowe, who's a good friend of all of ours, and she's right here in the green room with us, which has her own trust frequency, book. She's terrific. She says, when we are in flow. You speak of Emanuel. When we serve ourselves, we automatically serve others. And when we serve others, we automatically serve ourselves. Yeah, because this whole oneness thing, you know, when we heal ourselves, we heal the earth. When we heal the earth, we heal ourselves, you know, so the back and forth. So Connie's big thumbs up and agreeing with that. And then Caroline comes in. Caroline says, I wasn't aware of Deborah. I am now, and I love her. So you've got a new fan here, Deborah.
Thank you.
Sean says, wow, what a great panel today. Thank you for gathering this morning. Sean, thank you for that. Diana says, is Deborah a vegan? Her saying nonviolent food made me think so. I'm a vegan too. So that's a question to you, Deborah.
Well, I think it's up to everybody to choose the right diet for themselves. And so when I said nonviolent food, it's great. If veganism works for you, go for it. If vegetarianism works for you, go for it. There's many millions of people in India supporting that one. And I am a vegetarian myself. But if you need to eat meat, I think we're designed to eat meat, and of course, certain blood types more than others. But it doesn't have to be factory produced meat, which has done enormous harm. When you see the way the animals are treated, it's just heartbreaking to see chickens or pigs squeezed together in cages, and they're not healthy and they're not having a life. Whereas if you have farms where the animals are allowed to go free range and have pasture and have social interaction with one another, then I'm not opposed to eating meat. But we can't have what we have now, which is that as soon as people who are living in poverty reach a certain level of sufficiency, they start to eat more meat and more and more and more meat. And this is not healthy for our bodies or our societies. So it's all about balance, living in balance with our bodies and in harmony with the earth and all life on earth.
Yes, it is, right, because we're one. You know, when we go again back to the non-physical realm, that's what the whole container is. There isn't anything but that web of life where we really feel into our oneness. And of course, on our Humanity Stream Plus on our platform, you know, we create these programs, Life After Death, where we're sharing. Wayne Dyer's active in today's world, you know, and he's saying, hey, one of the things I was sharing when I was here, I was a little off on, where he was saying, I am. I said, I should have been saying, we are, you know, because this is one of the things you know, as I'm back in the web of life in the non-physical realm, if you don't know it down there, you're going to know it when you come here, you know, that it's all we are, you know. And it's beautiful. And boy, you know, these notions, I know when we start on this path, sometimes there are these thoughts of, oh, when I go to I, you know, to we, maybe I'll give some things up. Maybe maybe it won't be as much fun or something, which couldn't be further from the truth, right? Wow, because once we, and I know you all, you know, Emanuel and Deborah are giving words to this, but once we journey on this path, it's like, wow, this is where we find, something that just so deeply resonates. It feels so good, and that is creating this better and brighter future for everybody.
You're exactly right, Steve. And, you know, it's something I think we're all learning on a massive scale here. And we're really creating a critical mass of people who understand that it's not all about me. Quite the contrary. As the Ubuntu phrase goes, I am because you are. And really, if we're isolated individual on a desert island, do we have any meaning? Do we have any self-reflection? So the only thing that really gives us purpose, meaning in this life is our relationship with others. and how we work with them and how we see ourselves reflected in their eyes and vice versa. So this is really this true turning point in human understanding. We were always born with it. We lost sight of it. Now we're returning to it. We're sharing it together. It's all the same spiritual essence, but it's also scientific essence too. It's now proven that this is the interconnected field of all reality. Bohm's theory of the Holo movement requires non-locality, which won the Nobel Prize for Physics last year. 3 physicists who proved non-locality is real, that the minute any 2 particles are entangled and once the properties of one are changed, no matter how far away the other one does, the same thing instantaneously happens. This means there's a web of consciousness far beyond space-time reality, uniting us all instantaneously every moment of every day. And when you think about that, this grand, beautiful web of consciousness that is the entire universe, and we're this tiny little node in the middle of it, it makes us understand our place in the universe, our interconnectivity, and that every act, thought we make will reflect on the whole. And that while we're thinking of that, then it is about action. This isn't about talking heads and high-sounding philosophy. It's about right livelihood, right action, taking action, figuring out what we can do best with our purpose and our talents to contribute to the good of the whole. So the Holo movement encourages us all to do that, to find a whole-on, a group that's simultaneously an individual and a part of the whole and the whole itself. Work together in that community, build understanding, create your own ecosystem of support. You know, so many of us have lost our ways or get discouraged because we need people who understand this, and we need to share it with them. And we need to have those communities of support. So build your own, find your own whole-on, find your own home, bring it together, build your community, take action. Let's make this world a peaceful, prosperous, and purposeful place where we can all live together in harmony.
Amen to that. Yeah. So, and of course, this whole, maybe as we end, you know, there's this microcosm, macrocosm thing, and we're kind of going back and forth talking to both this, but microcosm, as we live into this new reality with these new understandings, with this understanding that we're a part of this great web of life, of this oneness, and where there's a divinity within, which is actually incredibly powerful. And Deborah was talking earlier, don't give your power away, you know, not to doctors, not to anybody. I mean, divinity is wow. I mean, divinity is all powerful, right? So where we live into this, and then enough of us do it together, and we reach tipping point, this whole Malcolm Gladwell thing, then the macrocosm, you know, this whole existential crisis goes away. The existential crisis thing is all just a reflection of microcosm, where we're all, it's me, you know, it's about my world, my climbing the ladder, my power, fame, and fortune, this is what's created this whole existential crisis thing. And as enough of us come in, start living into the fullness of who we really are, where it's all now about about supporting this whole, the earth and all of the 8 billion faces here, and all the other life forms, where we've brought in, you know, even animals in cages and things, it creates this beautiful life for us, but this whole macrocosm thing shifts too. There is a true tipping point, and when we, 15, 20 years from now, when we transition, that there's this whole notion of existential crisis, it's gone. Why? Because it can't happen where we live. The way that we're talking about living, you know, there is no existential crisis. There's a beautiful earth, a sustainable and flourishing earth for future generations. So, and we're at the top of the hour, so we shared at the beginning of the hour, boy, this hour is going to go fast. And it did. And I just want to thank you so much here, Emanuel Kuntzelman, Deborah Moldow. Thank you for being my guests. A shout out to Evolutionary Leaders, this organization that we're a part of. A shout out to all of you, Humanities Stream members, Humanities Team members. Again, the Sign Network, John Raymer. Thank you all for being here. we're going to pull the camera back so you can see Jim Gray here, who is the producer of this thing. So that's me on the couch there. That's Jim over there. Yeah, little studio here. We actually have a couple studios here. This is the one we use for these live programs. And Jim, thank you. Pulling somebody in live from Spain and from Mexico and the U.S. and Jim makes it look easy, but sometimes things go wrong. It's not ABC or NBC with a little closed loop thing. You're flying into turbulence sometimes. So Jim, thank you. This all worked pretty well today. So again, big shout out to guests. Thank you all for being here with us for this hour-long program. Wow, been really exciting and a really important topic. So thanks again, and look forward to being with both of you again soon. And love and peace and blessings, everybody.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve.
Great pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you.